Okay, so let's review, because most of the students, when they finish AP with me, and we have after test debriefing. You can call debriefing. That's a big word, right? We review it. So let's prepare for my next students. So you give me debriefing on the two of them. Which one is hard for you? Which one is easy for you? Go ahead. One AP at a time.
Yeah, they were both relatively easy. I think. I thought like, actually, I think Lang was significantly easier technically. I think a lot of APUSH's like multiple choice wasn't me knowing the content. It was more just logic of, well, that didn't happen in this period. That happened in the next period.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And there was some weird like distribution of content. There was a lot of like stuff from prior to colonization, which I thought was strange.
You are talking about the AP U.S. history, yes or no?
Yeah. Yes.
So now we do one at a time. Let's talk about the AP U.S. history and which part is hard for you, which one is easier for you.
I think the hardest part was there were a couple short answers that were like asking for very strange things. There was one that gave us a passage about like that basically argued that the most, at least what I thought it was arguing, was that the most like politically strifled time was when like Jacksonian democracy was going up against the Whig Party.
Okay.
And I was like, that period of history is like kind of glossed over but I was trying to, there was like, well, what event could challenge that claim? And I was trying to think like, well, in that period, was it really that much when there were, I tried to argue that there were still laws passed, which is not a great argument, because I was trying to think, okay, what can you do to challenge that argument?
Okay, so in terms of a longer essay, what's the topic and how
we didn't have, because for the digital version, we didn't have the long essay question. We had more short answers, but the DBQ was it was pretty easy. It was how much did international competition change foreign policy from 1945 to 1975?
1945 to 1975, Cold War era, right?
Yeah, so basically,
what kind of document? Any weird document? And what kind of document?
There wasn't really anything super strange. I mean, there was the idea that there was this interview with the then Governor Ronald Reagan talking about Vietnam, and he was talking about he made this argument that, in fact, if you are demonstrating against the Vietnam War, you are helping the enemy, right? This idea of like you're doing what they want, but at the same time, I think Vietnam's hard to say whether or not really we should have gotten involved. I think.
Oh, no. But they trying to give you two sides of the story, right? Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, there was another like cartoon that had like two people with signs that said "Stay in Vietnam, get out of Vietnam." But I mean, like, it was kind of strange in terms of the topic, like, because as much as those anti-war demonstrations were a big part of the Cold War, I don't know like how much they had to do with, like, I tried to tie it to, well, this international competition with other countries started like causing turmoil in our own country, is how I tried to connect it, I think, but it's hard to say.
That's also related with the 1960s, the whole cultural environment in the 1960s. So 1960s is the big turning point with the assassination of JFK, with the counter demonstration pro-Vietnam War and anti-Vietnam War.
Yeah, there was also like a Nixon, I don't know if it was, I think it was a speech talking about like I don't know what it was trying to say. It was kind of a mess, but it was like, I think it was like I think that was when Nixon was like, well, I think he was trying to defend some negotiation with the Soviet Union, saying like, "Hey, we need to make sure we don't go to all-out war."
That's right, détente. That's why it's a Cold War. They're trying to keep the Cold War cold,
yeah,
not a hot war.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that Nixon would say that, right?
Yeah, Nixon is a very, careful leader, you can say. We mentioned about his even environmental policy, right? His international policy, his environmental policy, and all in all, he's a very, you can say, conservative, but he's not a kind of reckless leader in the international scene. You can talk
right,
about.
yeah, and so like, yeah, and then eventually we were like, okay, and so by the time Reagan came to power, I mean, like when Reagan came to power, he came in like reigniting a lot of the things that like we were trying to calm down.
Okay.
Right, at least at first, right? I mean, it didn't go that far, so I didn't have to talk about that much with Reagan, but I did talk about in the very end, just to like extend it a bit. I said like, and in the years to come, when Ronald Reagan was elected president, like, and then eventually with Mikhail Gorbachev and the falling of the Berlin Wall, this international competition de-escalated or something.
That's good. We talk about Bush administration, Reagan administration, and Bush administration, and the negotiation with Gorbachev. And did I mention that James Baker in Houston?
Yeah,
Baker Institute, and he is very instrumental in negotiating with Gorbachev. He's a very shrewd business person, business attorney, and compared with him, Gorbachev is a very idealistic and no practical understanding of how international relations work and give and take negotiation.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, like, well, who do we really associate that with? And I mean, like, Baker, like, do we associate the whole, like, fall of the Soviet Union with, like, I think there was a multiple choice question that was around this, is like, that, like, I that was trying to, one of the options started talking about, like, the U.S. being, like, the sole reason of, like, of the Soviet Union falling or something, and I was like, well, that's not right, because it wasn't really just us, right?
A lot of part of the fall of the Soviet Union are internal decay.
Yeah, it was mostly
internal implosion. But the AP, being AP is a company, they have their direction. So number one, we need to try to understand history as much as possible. But the second one, especially multiple choice, basically understanding how college board are expecting your answer. So how to use the elimination to narrow down the answer that
sometimes so a lot of it was like, well, that didn't really happen in this period. Like there was surprisingly little about like late 1800s, early 1900s.
So you think we are over prepared or under prepared for AP?
I think because of the it's kind of strange, because preparing for APENG is kind of strange, because it's like, as long as you have the skills, like, because it's a skills-based test, content is only like, it is sort of like, I mean, I wouldn't say, I think we were rightly prepared, because we as long as you know generally what happened when, in like what period, you have, like, this is what our teacher told us too, is like, you don't need to know exactly when something happened, right? You don't need to know exactly some specific date. You just need to know
all the periods, right? That's good advice for my
generally what happened.
That's
good enough.
So that's right. When we prepare that, we narrow down with several, especially pre-Civil War period, we prepared, we narrow them down each period. How many tests on the pre-Civil War period?
I mean,
Jacksonian, democracy.
Yeah, that was the one short answer question that I was like, what? I mean, like, I was trying to think, well, okay, there was that crazy election with, was it John Quincy Adams? Yeah, and then there was the other one.
Number 6, there was like, president.
Yeah, and then like there was the four-way race, right?
Wow,
Or was that?
that's right. Yes, that's very detailed question. Is
Yeah,
where they
I didn't
get
mention the
up.
elections because I was like, I don't, but because I was trying to remember, and then I was like, well, do I really even need to bring it up? But I think like looking back, I probably could have talked about, hey, well, if you looked at I mean, because like I remember the term corrupt bargain.
Oh, that's
I
right.
Yeah, but I couldn't remember all the details around it. So I was like, I don't want to bring it up and then just leave it alone,
Good
right?
job. That's good enough. So I expected that during the COVID-19 time, they probably make it relatively easier and easier to test. So now move on to the AP literature, no, AP English
The
language, AP Lin. So which part surprised you? Which part is easy?
I think, honestly, there were some weird passages in the multiple choice. The questions
Uh-huh.
weren't that bad, but the passages were like, there was an entire one about like the philosophy of chairs.
Philosophy of chairs, existent list. Okay. So that means probably the truth, the truth, the
Yeah,
knowledge, the objective truth, or subjective truth, right?
yeah. It was sort of like the idea that like I barely remember this, but like like it was a weird passage. And then the very next one was about conversationalism. And the only thing it told us about the passage was by a I don't know if it was 17th or 18th century English philosopher. And I was like, okay. And this idea of like conversationalism, and like I had never heard about it before. Again, the questions weren't that bad. It was the passage was kind of weird. I
But
was
you know
trying to
what? I was just teaching another student from New York, upstate New York, Rochester. Okay, so they are doing IB. So the style of college board in the AP language, they are more and more move to philosophy because that will prepare you guys to think more philosophically on
yeah.
a lot of other issues. So do you think that the last year's Harvard
Yeah,
justice is
I think it
actually
was.
a lot of not only about the law, but a lot of philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it did help me read. Like, it wasn't nearly as bad as like Kant, right? But like,
Okay, so
but
I exactly want to talk with you about Kant. So basically, in Kant, you talk about ethics, right? Philosophy, ethic, what is right and wrong, but it's also in the IB test, they talk about aesthetics, the
oh
appreciation of art, right? But
yeah,
we found out no matter what you talk about justice, you talk about law, you talk about everything, you cannot avoid Kant.
you
So
can't.
this guy
Yeah,
is
because
so hard. So last
that guy
year we
talked
talk
about
about,
everything.
yeah.
Right?
So now you talk to me that even in the AP language, there's a
Yeah, well,
more
the thing is,
philosophy
the
part.
questions weren't about. The questions were more about like rhetoric and things like that, right? It was more
Okay.
like this is being used to do this. At least that's what I remember.
So that's why last summer we have two class. One is Harvard rhetoric
Yeah,
analysis. Basically, how the politicians from the left and the right use rhetorical power to move people
yeah,
to their direction.
yeah.
Probably in this one is more like a
Yeah, I mean,
philosophical
like
understanding.
our rhetorical analysis was literally a speech from Obama.
Oh, Obama. Oh, come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a Rosa Parks. It was like about
Oh,
memorializing Rosa Parks, and I think
he
it was a
go
good
to,
topic. It was a
yeah,
great.
the
I think it
South.
was a good. It was fairly simple, but I mean, um, and then what was the synthesis was about handwriting.
Mhm.
It was about whether or not handwriting has a place in our schools, and like it was easier to argue that it doesn't. It was easier
Okay,
to
of course,
argue.
from you guys' point of view. So, like this morning, uh, parents are worried about young kids need to write about cursive.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that I know some people who took the position of handwriting, yes, cursive, no, which I thought was maybe I should have done, but I think like for me it was like easier to just go full on no because more of the sources supported it, right? It's just you just choose which one's easier
So
to
how
write.
do you support your argument? How did you
It
support
was
your
just
argument?
like for example, there was like I talked about how well a lot of the skills you can learn in handwriting, you can learn of it like through other means, right?
Like
Like
art, how do you support yourself?
yeah, like for example, like I said, like I talked about, well, if your reason for teaching handwriting is developing motor skills, well,
Mhm.
playing instruments, right,
Oh, okay.
has a very similar skill set. And then I said like, what else did I talk about? I know at the end, okay, the weirdest source was one of them. I'm sure you've seen those elementary cursive worksheets. Yeah,
Yes.
one of our sources was just that worksheet. It was a picture of one of those worksheets.
Okay.
So at the end of my essay, I said I didn't really synthesize it. I just said um, instead of teaching our students, we need to teach our students useful topics rather than having spending lots of time in classroom instruction on worksheets such as the one in document 2, right? That's sort of how I
Okay.
ended.
Maybe even coding. I have elementary school students right now are learning coding.
Yeah,
So
I
when
think
I
that's
was in college, I never heard about these things. So
right.
time
I think
change.
like yeah,
Yeah. So you
and
can argue about the time changes, and
yeah.
in the
I
ancient
I
time,
think I
like
mentioned
50 years ago, they don't have to learn so much,
right.
right? Like robotics, coding,
Yeah.
in order to adjust to the modern society. And when the cursive was developed, that was basically in the Queen Victoria's time, maybe.
Yeah, it was
I,
actually
I guess.
like there was a document about like the history of like different types of handwriting. It was really interesting of like, well, you see these guys came together and they're like, here's how we're gonna teach people how to write now, pretty much.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It was interesting.
Actually, I was also thinking right now, a lot of time I use voice input to my
Oh
cell phone
yeah.
and connect with the computer.
Yeah, voice to text would have been interesting. Yeah.
And yeah, voice to text is very easy way for me to input,
And
both
then
in English and in Chinese. So that save a lot of agonization.
yeah, the essay I spent the longest on was the argumentative essay because it was
Mhm.
just easier to argue. It was
That's right.
basically about perfection and
Oh,
whether or not like perfection is something. Basically, I argued that you're never really going to truly reach perfection because
mhm.
of a lot of different things. And you might not even want to reach perfection, but it is a goal but it can be a powerful motivator, is basically what I said. And
But
so for the first part, I basically put as many examples as I could for the first part because I talked about Gatsby as
oh,
yeah, because Gatsby was trying. I was arguing that like basically he as like I think I put it as not desirable and also not attainable because he was living an almost perfect life, right? And then he tried to make his life perfect by getting Daisy, and then his life fell apart, right? It's,
but you can mention without that dream, without that strive
yeah,
for perfection, he will stay and become his dad, right? Like
yeah,
staying in Minnesota as a farmer and cannot
yeah. And I
move.
also talked about like I mentioned a lot of like theater shows. I talked about so Into the Woods is a
Mhm.
is a is a good example because the entire second act of Into the Woods is about how happily ever after isn't really what it seems. Right.
That's
So I
right.
said
That's
maybe
right.
it's not desirable to live the perfect life. And then a theater at our high school did a show called
I'm
Failure.
very glad that your school system are also reading Into the Woods. Into
Well,
the
we
Woods.
didn't read it. That was just something I knew. Uh,
Okay. Oh, not in
yeah, because
school,
I
but
did
your
like
self
musical
education.
theater is something that I like because
Mm-hmm,
I like
mm-hmm,
sauna and stuff. So our theater department did a show called Failure, a
mm-hmm.
love story, and it was about like this clock shop. it was about this family named the Fail family, and basically it was basically just their family was plagued by bad luck. That's the point of the show is, and so this guy shows up named Mortimer, and he like basically throughout the show he's like so close to living this perfect life, and then gets it all like taken away from him. And so I said, like, you can't control the circumstances around you, and so you're not really going to be able to reach perfection. And then the final example I used was Sunday in the Park with George, which is another Sondheim musical.
Okay.
Which was it's basically about this. It's a confusing story about this artist, but basically what I said was this artist is constantly trying to like achieve this perfect painting, and like meanwhile his life is falling apart.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. Okay, so the two AP U.S. history, you are talking about this, we are well prepared, but there is some gap. As long as we prepared each and every section, you don't have to know everything, but use a logical deduction, you can do them pretty well, right?
So, and Lang, I think, is just I think with Lang, it's just like, I mean, as long as you know the structures to the FRQs and you've done some practice.
The argumentative essay and the analysis essay, do you think you have enough time? How many characters basically you wrote?
I don't know how much I wrote, because I think I just wrote whatever could come to mind, and then it's like, okay, well, it's time.
How many paragraphs each?
Most of them, I tried to write like 4 solid paragraphs, because like I didn't want to like try to do a third paragraph. Like I didn't do a third paragraph because I was like, well, I don't want to start a paragraph and then like stop knowing what I'm talking about, right? So
good job. So next semester, how many AP are you working on?
So next year, the only real humanities one I'm taking is literature. Okay. Because in the history, in the social studies department at Peak to Peak, after you take APUSH, you take AP psychology. Is what happens.
I told AP psychology this year, and it's unless you really like the field, right? The too many memorization. I have a debriefing with one girl. She's a 10th grader going to 11, okay? And because she's very detail oriented, there are thousands of concepts you have to memorize. That's also very big detail. If you don't want to do medicine, if you don't want to do some other psychology related field, I strongly suggest I think you choose AP English literature. That is better. So today I want to do two things.
I'm taking literature, and literature I think is I let me pull up the text that we're reading next year because it's online.
Okay. I have a lot of tests for you, but if you have some tests you share with me, we talk about it. Okay. Let me give you an outline because I teach this one and self-taught that many years. Okay. Now you pull out the stuff. Okay.
Summer reading. High school.
I use this one. I'm going to give you a picture. That's our school district use this. The Norton Reader of English Literature.
Okay. I don't know what
share screen with me. Share screen with me.
Hold on. This one. Okay, if you could see that. AP Literature, no, I'm on the screen. Yeah, it's these 4. So Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Okay.
Beloved, Hamlet, and Waiting for Godot. And then
which one is hard?
There might be some other stuff that's not listed here, but there's also, this is from the required text list from the assignment.
Why don't you, after class, immediately you send all the list to me, okay?
Okay,
why don't you do that?
Okay. Let me. I don't know if you can see
the reading list are the most important. You don't have to send your teachers a personal message, but you can cut and paste and send that to my email.
I'm gonna send this in the chat. Hold on.
Good job. Yeah, let's go through this.
These are our choice. Like, we have to read one of these novels over the summer, but there's a lot of options, right?
Let me suggest.
I'll probably read as many as I can, but.
Let's make a decision. I strongly encourage you to read this person's novel, The Bone Setter's Daughter.
Yeah.
No, don't do this, because I hate the book.
I wasn't really thinking. I don't think like Amy Tan's novels. I think like there is some like literary merit.
I think she's a racist. I think she's a racist. She's a racist against Chinese. She's a Chinese, but she's used. She's reinforced the Asian women's stereotype about Asian culture.
I do think that too, but there's other books here.
I strongly suggest you to do this Crime and Punishment.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. But there's, I'm just trying to figure out like, do I read like I'm probably gonna read Crime and Punishment, but there's also like
it's not an easy book, okay?
Yeah, there's
it's
also
not an easy book, but that's why I think give you some challenge.
I think we do read another one.
Another choice is 1,000 Years of Solitude.
Really? Okay.
That's the best Latin America novel. There's only one choice. That's what would be good. Okay, there is some good novel, but some of them are not.
Yeah, like Leo. Like, I mean, I would, if I had a really long time, maybe I would read Tolstoy. I mean, I don't know how long.
Tolstoy. Why don't they choose War and Peace? Anna Karenina, I know from the American point of view that this one is the best, but it's actually not. It's about
I think War and Peace. Yeah, I think it's just War and Peace is
into the feminism narrative in the internal politics, but actually the War and Peace is the best. But I'm very surprised and sad that the American education system avoid War and Peace and put Anna Karenina.
Yeah, it's
weird.
Tell
you the truth, I never finished this book, but I finished War and Peace many times.
I know War and Peace is longer, right?
It's longer, but there's so much history, and the American kids are not very good at history out of the United States.
I mean, there's also like Song of Solomon. I mean, Wuthering Heights.
I never finished that book because the Emily Bronte, I like Jane Eyre the most. Because
I think like, I don't know why. I don't know. I don't have a reason to read that book when I can read Jane Eyre.
That's right. Song of Solomon is both basically it fit into the racism because it's African American.
Yeah, I mean we're reading Beloved, right? Yeah, we're reading Beloved.
Yes. So which other ones? But I will cooperate with you. But I want you to read out some of the very weak ones. Anna Karenina, if you are very interested in the feminist narrative, read this one. It's about female psychology. But the Crime of Punishment is about morality in terms of crime. Morality. This is a very deep book.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna read Crime and Punishment, and then
wonderful. And Virginia Woolf is also a beautiful writing, and if we work on this book together, I will be very happy. 100 Years of Solitude, a wonderful book, but it's too much fantasy. It's too much fantasy.
What is this story of Edgar Sawtelle? What is this? I've never heard of this book.
Which one?
Oh, the one of the last ones is Story of Edward Sawtelle. 2008.
I never heard about it.
It was published in 2008. Born mute, speaking only in sign, Edgar Sawtelle leads an idyllic life with his parents on their farm in remote northern Wisconsin.
Okay.
Oh, it's a dog book. Okay, got it.
Okay, so this kind of a modern book, I probably more into the classics. So we narrow down some of them. Anna Karenina is good, but the Crime and Punishment, many private schools in Houston study this book, especially religious institution. They like to read, deep books. Okay, so we narrow them down. Okay, good. Some other things about this one. But we leave some minutes on the Harvard Chinese history.
Yeah.
I'll give you some preparation material to study. Okay.
Okay.
So, but let's finish the AP literature first. Any other requirement? Let me know.
I mean, there's probably other books we are reading that are just not listed.
There's the 21. Let me send you the list of 21 poetry must read for AP literature. Okay. Let me send you the link. Okay.
Yeah. I know,
Poems must read for AP English literature. I remember 21, so my memory didn't fail me. So I'm going to send you this list for you to prepare and tell me which one you already know. Of course, we start from Dora Beach.
Yeah, we can do that.
Elizabeth Bishop. Really cool African-American ladies, very easy poetry. Oh, my last Duchess, Robert Bronte. That is the self-narrative. It's very interesting poetry. About this guy, this Duke, murder the wife, the Duchess, and are going to marry another young girl.
I think Emily Dickinson.
Like poetry, like a drama. It's a drama. Emily Dickinson, of course.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't looked into that, but I should read more T.S. Eliot.
Of course, this is must read. This is the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Is a must read. Okay, so we can go through this list.
I know Mending Wall. I don't know if I've read all things. Those Winter Sundays we talked about.
Mending Wall is very important, especially in the Trump time of building the wall with Mexico.
Yeah.
Right. So there are so many articles about, is he mean to build the wall or not to build the wall? Everybody was quoting, both the conservative and the liberal were quoting Robert Frost. And Robert Frost, of course, all his poetry are vague. You can interpret them in one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, two roads diverse in the Yellow Woods. This one we will do in the summer, or the next semester we'll work on them together.
Yeah, those Winter Sundays we did. Let America Be America Again is a really good poem.
This is really used to be banned, and because it's really left.
Yeah, but I think it's good.
I teach this one for everyone. Ode to the Grecian Young. It's about beauty.
Have I read that one before?
Oh man. To his coil mistress. Seduction to a mistress. This seduction poetry. Okay.
I'll say Decormast is brilliant, I think. Really is.
Okay, this is about the war. This is about the Great War, the soldiers' experience. Let me select. Why don't, of course, Shakespeare, always Shakespeare, always sonnet.
Yeah, Ozymandias.
Ozymandias. The British system also always tests Shelley's.
Yeah.
Let's choose one of them. Okay, and give you a preparation. The Second
Coming.
Also,
the Second Coming is a really good poem. I haven't read that one in a while, but I do really like it.
Let's you read them yourself, or because it's the Second Coming is a very scary. It is a very scary poetry. Let's read it together. Let me think. What do you think about this very scary poetry.
Oh my God. They had
and
Dominic
maybe we
West
have a
use
second
this.
coming. Maybe we are going to have a second coming because the world is getting even more crazy. Now they are printing money like crazy. Now with COVID-19, and they are printing money like crazy. That's exactly what happened during before the Great Depression, right? So,
yeah.
And William W.B. Yeats, he have this feeling.
The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats.
That's between World War I and World War II, that kind of time. And then Irish Revolution, of course. And being an Irish intellectual.
I think Irish Revolution is one of the most fascinating topics.
Fascinating, the most brutal one, too.
Yeah.
Very fascinating.
Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold.
The center cannot hold. He was talking about, World War I, World War II time, but we are thinking about in this year, 2021.
I mean,
the center cannot hold. We are talking about the world right now. Are we going to have anarchy like last year? If this last year, near anarchy is losing upon the world. Now we are having what? Palestine and Israel bombing.
Yeah, it's such a mess.
Ongoing.
On both sides. I don't care who you support. That is, I mean, that's not ending anytime soon. I think both sides agree on that, right?
Right.
Anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed. And everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned.
The ceremony of innocence is drowned. The ceremony of innocence of a political system, okay, the belief system, the decency, the common decency, the good citizenship, community service, okay.
The best lack all conviction.
The best lack all conviction. The educated people, the high-minded people don't seriously believe what they're supposed to believe.
Yeah.
Well, the worst part of humanity, what do? They're seeking blood on the street.
While the worst are full of passionate
of intensity, passionate identity. He's talking about probably both sides of Irish Revolution, right?
Yeah.
Both sides is seeking blood.
I mean, and like, even people who eventually even for a guy like Michael Collins was like, we need to think about maybe we shouldn't do war, and it didn't work, right?
That's right. And the Irish Republic, these people negotiate with Nazi Germany in order to get what weapon? And the community breaking apart to different pieces. And some of the very good intellectuals are, personal friend, and they got shot by the British.
Yeah, because I think they did go to Germany. I mean, I know they did that in World War I as well. Like they went to Germany to get weapons, except they didn't get. I'm trying to remember whether or not they got the weapons, because there was a guy who went around calling off the rising.
But basically, they are seeking any help they can get, because they were so vulnerable compared with the Great British Empire. At that time, the British Empire was at their height, right?
Yeah. What fascinates me is that the politics around that, the Irish Civil War, I mean, they're still a huge part of Ireland today.
But think about it, if you move this intensity, a full of passionate intensity into the Middle East right now.
I mean, I would argue that's already happened.
Yeah, that's even worse than the Irish conflict.
Yeah.
I think it only can be worse than that. So Irish side, abandoned any level of decency.
Intensity.
They are full of a passionate intensity.
Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert a shape.
Isn't that scary? Because in Ireland they don't have sand. They have a blue Atlantic Sea, but in the Middle East, in Persia, in Iran, they do have a desert, and then a new force, maybe spiritual force, maybe an army, maybe a leader with code style of following.
Hands of the desert a shape with lion body and the head of a man.
The lion body, the powerful leader with head of man, human rationality. That's what I think.
A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun.
A gaze blank because they have no sympathy. A gaze blank have no sympathy. They can sacrifice anybody. Pitiless as the sun. The sun in the desert don't feel pity for the people who are thirsty, whether they die or not.
Sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again. But now I know the 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last.
And what rough beast, its hour come around at last. Isn't that scary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slouches towards Bethlehem to be born.
And this have nothing to do with Ireland. So this guy, yes, he thinking about the whole world and the whole humanity.
Yeah.
Sloth towards the Bethlehem to be born. Where is the Bethlehem? Current.
Oh, where is currently? It's, I know it's in the Middle East, right?
It's in Israel.
It's in Israel.
Northern part of Israel, right?
Yeah.
Or Palestine. Okay, that is a small little town Jesus supposed to be born in. So in Christmas they sing the song, right? Sloth towards the Bethlehem to be born. But this one is Christ or Antichrist? Nobody knows. What does he mean? But he was talking about this monster like what? Like a snake. Sloth towards Bethlehem to be born. And yes, of course, he's a Christian, but he's also very, very deep into medieval, pagan, what? Celtic mythology. This guy is very deep in the pagan mythology. He makes both of them. And this one is predicting the future. He have a picture in his mind, and he took a lot of notes. For example, most of the university in the United States, they actually have club, college lecture. So I'm going to use a lot of college lectures to teach you about I have been studying this poetry for a long time and whole year's poetry. For example, in Dallas, there are several professors are teaching this one. These are college professors teaching this poetry. Let's start a little beginning. Oh, this one is a college in England. This one is better than the college in the United States. And this college is a Catholic college. For example, yes, officially he's supposed to be a Catholic, but he's not. Actually, he's not. His political view is Catholic. And he's not even a real nationalist. I mean, Irish nationalist. APs. Let's only talk about one of them. And I want you to preview this 12 poetry, and we only started the hardest one. For example, T.S. Eliot. Of course, I insist we study T.S. Eliot together because I spent years and years to T.S. Eliot. Let's watch this one for 3 minutes only. And you tell me what you understand, how much you understand this college lecture from UK.
As well.
And then I'm going to send you 2 T.S. Eliot poetry, the love song thing, and also the wasteland.
Essentially, the form is used to symbolize the inability of language to represent.
This is the structure. The structure.
Truth and meaning. Language is traditionally used to construct meaning, identity, reality, history, ideas. However, Yeats uses form to symbolically undermine the ability of conventional forms, such as the sonnet, to accurately represent the modern world.
Yeah, I want you to read some of the best poetry from this college. Simile. A gaze blank and pitiless, us the song. Of course, you know simile, but why this language is so scary, so powerful? It gave you a goosebump. It's really scared me every time I read this poetry.
Monosyllabic description of the monster's slow thighs slows the pace of the line to mirror the motion of the beast. The power of the beast is such that it controls the language of the poem itself and provides an ominous quality to the beast's intent. Additionally, the indignant birds reel, again alluding to the motion of the Gaia, but also with connotations of death and destruction. Birds of prey waiting to...
Okay, I don't want to hear it. Death and destruction. It's the general... Yeah. And he wrote a very moving poetry because at that time he had a new daughter. His new daughter was born. And he's old. And he's really scared. He wants to give the best to his daughter, but he's really scared. Okay, so which one I think is very good? There is a lot of, this guy from UT Austin. UT Austin. He's one of the best professor. I watched a lot of his stuff. He talked about yes, he's better than this guy from Yale, even though in order to understand, yes, I finished all the Yale courses. Okay, this guy, he's not that good. He's not the best, but he's okay. He can survive in Yale. He's worth your attention. Okay, so if you watch this in yourself and ask me any questions, so we can discuss. Okay, now the last thing, I'm going to give that to you because I used to teach the wasteland. T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot. The love song. Okay, I want you to watch the presentation. She's not good enough. And one of these guys from Duke University, he's very boring and sad lecture, but very deep. Okay, I studied this guy for a long time. It's boring. She's very easy to understand, but too superficial for you, right? Too superficial for you. Some of the best actors speak.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, he's very good. He's very good. The voice is beautiful. So next class, Yeah, we are going to do the Harvard thing, but after Harvard thing, we do some individual class. Next semester, we will study T.S. Eliot because I spent years and years studying T.S. Eliot. Okay, and of course, the most powerful work of T.S. Eliot, from this one poetry, he started the modern poetry, the wasteland. 24 minutes. I spent years and years to understand, try to understand this poetry, and took a lot of notes. You should study this one with me. Okay, T.S. Eliot. Oh, this guy is perfect. He is a wonderful speaker. These are the presentation from two actors. And he's good. He's good. He's good. He's good. He's very good.
It's a 3-minute video.
3 minutes video? 3 minutes? No. Oh, then he wanted money, of course. Not the 3. There is certain 30 minutes video, or else we will do the Yale lecture. This guy, he has added 3. He have 3 hours. Okay, is that too much torture? But he's good. He's very good. I mean, in terms of study T.S. Eliot. But he is so superficial, I cannot finish it. AP class, high school teacher. If he don't understand that much, why do you teach? Okay. So this poetry, if you have the time to learn from the best, okay? I'm not the best, but I learn from the best. So these are British, this guy is good. These are British people, because T.S. Eliot is American, all right? But he adopted the British citizenship. He abandoned the United States. He changed his citizenship, and he's converted his religion from Protestantism to Catholic. He became a Catholic. He changed himself, and he's a very complicated person. He studied philosophy, PhD in Harvard University, moved to UK, married a very upper class woman, and that woman get crazy on him, stayed in the asylum, and in his old age, he married he's a secretary, a barely educated woman, and he feel very happy. So T.S. Eliot, very complicated person. He's an over-educated person. Let's listen to this one for 3 minutes.
The term he wrote was a song for Simeon, based upon the story in the New Testament of which we get the Nunc Dimittis, which is said as at evening prayer.
Basically, this one poetry, he summarized all Western intellectual history, especially poetry, Shakespeare, Dante. In one poetry, he summarized the whole Western literature history. So it's a very hard one. I used to drive some of my students. We learned this one together. They don't want to see me anymore, for good reason, for very good reason. So to conclude today's class, let's listen to the Wasteland a little bit. Which one have the best? Which one have the best voice? April is the cruelest month. That's the beginning of the poetry. Let's listen to 5 minutes, and then the Burial of the Dead. April is the cruelest month. Why April is the cruelest month? This is after World War I, right? The whole Europe cut by a trench, right? From here to here, cut through them, and the dead body is everywhere. And the snow cover everything. It become beautiful, it's comforting. But April, when the snow is melting, the dead people begin to appear. That's why April is the cruelest month. Winter keep us warm.
April is the cruelest month. breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring
mixing memory and desire. The desire, the heat desire, bring the world into World War I.
Roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm.
Winter keep us warm. First time you read it, so scary, not so strange. Why winter keep us warm? Now you know the background and the psychological background, you understand.
Yeah.
Covering earth in forgetful snow.
Forgetful snow, you don't want to memorize that nightmare thing.
Feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us, coming over the Starnberger See with a shower of rain.
So the fall season, he mentioned in several, paragraphs. In one small paragraph, summarize 3 seasons. Of course, the whole poetry is several thousand years of literature history.
We stopped in the colonnade and went on in sunlight into the Hofgarten and drank coffee and talked for an hour. Bin gar keine Russin.
That's the German language. That's when the higher class was marrying each other, right? The Europe was at peace.
Stamm aus Litauen, echt Deutsch. And when we were children, staying at the Archduke's, my cousins, he took me out on a sled, and I was frightened. He said, Marie, Marie, hold on tight. And down we went. In the mountains, there you feel free. I read much of the night and go south in the winter. What are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish? Son of man, you cannot say or guess, for you know only a heap of broken images where the sun beats and the dead...
You know only a heap of broken images. That is the Western civilization left. People have no conviction because all the high ideal was smashed to pieces. These smartest soul, they don't believe these political propaganda, right? Only the second tier, third tier people believe in them, make them, and feed them through the AP college board to the general population, unfortunately. That's why we need to directly read T.S. Eliot and Yeats, because these guys think about the fate of the earth and they have intuition that can go very deep. That is scary. Compare with these guys' thinking process with all these politicians, the propagandas. These are trash. They know things we don't know. That's why we read T.S. Eliot, okay? Even though it's 100 years old, it's almost like yesterday. Yeah. It's almost like today. He's talking about today.
Yeah.
Yes, and T.S. Eliot, these are the first-class soul.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting if you look at like T.S. Eliot's works, there's stuff like Wasteland that are just so dense and heavy with stuff. And then he also has other poems that are super easy to like understand. It's like,
oh man, of course, T.S. Eliot, the cat poetry. I'm teaching.
Right, like it's such a big contrast. I still cannot believe Andrew Lloyd Webber thought it was a good idea to use his poems for a musical.
Man, okay, cats. He's a cat poetry, and I'm asking another parents. I was teaching the whole collection of Old Possum. Old Possum himself, book of practical cats, because he's a cat lover. This whole book, I know each and every poetry, each and every one of them.
Would you say it's like? Would you say this book of the Practical Cats book is really worth reading, or?
Oh, it's worth reading when you are kids, when you are in a very playful mood. When you,
right.
Each cat is a person. Each cat is a person. When your children come on to memory, this is for fun, because he was using this poetry to what? Entertainment. So that's why these comedians are reading his poetry.
Yeah.
Okay,
really interesting.
Comedians. I'm using this poetry to teach young kids. Like some of my favorite students, I always teaching them T.S. Eliot from the very beginning. Let me show you one of them. So I don't think right now, for your understanding, you should read the cat poetry.
Yeah, no, but like I was just bringing it up as like just looking at the at this sort of this different, like this contrast, right?
The contract, because he is teaching this, he's writing the cat poetry in a very playful mood.
Race no quarter was allowed.
This is my room. This is my little one. And here there's both Chinese and English. Okay, the cat. Okay. So I have this book. I will always love to teach this poetry, but not for you.
Yeah, it's just
study this very depressing. Both these two poetry are very depressing because this guy have a very complex soul. This guy have a very, and this girl is the best in terms of.
Today is February 11th, 2017.
February 11, 2017. That was in one of my classroom. They call it a gifted researching center. Let's listen to her and conclude our class. Even though this poetry appeared under the naming of cat in the 10th grader English literature, but she was at that time, what, how old? 8-year-old? I forgot. 9?
And I will read you Macavity, the Mr. Cat by
Macavity is what? A master criminal. The Napoleon.
Elliot. Macavity's a mystery cat. He's called the Hidden Paw, for he's the master criminal who can defy the law. He's a bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair, but when they reach the scene of crime, Macavity's not there.
So this is very playful. Basically, he's writing for the, the grand godson or goddaughter. I mean, the future generation, to entertain them. But in the wasteland is a communication to his generation. He's expressing his worry and for the future generation. Okay, I guess for the next 100 years, if humanity can survive that long, people are still reading T.S. Eliot.
Yeah.
And the other trashes will disappear, and our generation will disappear. Okay, anyway, have fun, and I'm very glad you did good with the 2 AP classes, and we are going to have fun together in the AP English literature, okay, and other class. And you are going to finish one Harvard course on Chinese history.
Yeah.
So that gives you a deeper understanding about how the best mind in the United States understanding an alien culture, a very different culture than the culture of the United States, in both of the time and the philosophy. How to rule the country, not only that, how the people think, what's the philosophical foundation of building an empire. They are very different from when you are born in the United States and raised in the school system and with your peers. So that would give you 2 ways of thinking history. Okay, so we'll have fun together. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.